Bride makes a shocking deal with a billionaire on her wedding night. Her life changes forever. Hello, let's start another beautiful story. Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's go. Issue wedding dress felt like a prison. Emma Carter stood before the full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the Manhattan courthouse, her reflection a stranger in ivory silk. The dress was beautiful, probably worth more than her entire wardrobe, but its elegance only emphasized how out of place she felt. In less than an hour, she would marry a man she'd met exactly twice. "You don't have to do this." Her younger sister Lucy hovered nearby, worry etched across her face. At 19, Lucy should have been focused on her college studies, not watching her older sister sell herself into a loveless marriage. Emma's fingers traced the delicate pearl buttons. Running down the bodice, "Yes, I do." Her voice was steady, even as her heart raced. "Mom's medical bills aren't going to pay themselves, and your tuition—" "I can drop out," Lucy interjected. "Work full-time instead." "Absolutely not." Emma turned from the mirror, gripping her sister's shoulders. "You're staying in school. That's non-negotiable." She forced a smile. "Besides, it's just marriage. People do it all the time." "Not like this," her mind whispered. Most people didn't marry billionaires they barely knew, signing contracts thick with clauses and conditions. Most people didn't agree to be a public wife and private stranger. A knock at the door made both sisters jump. Olivia Walsh, Nathan Blackwood's personally appointed wedding coordinator, stepped in with the precise efficiency that seemed to characterize everyone in his orbit. "5 minutes, Miss Carter." Emma nodded, her throat suddenly dry. Olivia's cool professionalism was a reminder of the world she was about to enter, a world of power, wealth, and carefully maintained appearances, a world where someone like her, a waitress from Queens, had no business belonging. "The prenuptial agreement," Olivia continued, producing a leather folder. "Mr. Blackwood requires one final signature before the ceremony." Of course he did. Emma accepted the pen with fingers that trembled only slightly. The document before her was familiar. She'd spent hours with her court-appointed lawyer reviewing its terms. 1 year of marriage, public appearances as a devoted couple, private lives kept strictly separate, a generous monthly allowance with additional funds for her mother's medical care and Lucy's education. And at the bottom, in stark black ink, no emotional entanglements. Emma signed her name with a flourish that belied her uncertainty. She was trading her freedom for financial security, her dreams of true love for the practical necessity of survival. It was a bargain she'd made peace with, or so she told herself. "Perfect." Olivia collected the folder with a thin smile. "Mr. Blackwood will see you at the altar." The word altar seemed too sacred for what was essentially a business transaction, but Emma kept that thought to herself. Instead, she turned back to Lucy, who looked on the verge of tears. "Hey," Emma softened her voice. "It's going to be okay. 1 year of playing house with New York's most eligible bachelor? Some girls would kill for this opportunity." The joke fell flat, but Lucy managed a watery smile. "I just want you to be happy." "I'll be happy knowing Mum's getting the best care possible and you're finishing your degree." Emma squared her shoulders. "That's worth more than any fairy tale." The courthouse chapel was mercifully small, with only a handful of witnesses present. Emma's mother, wheelchair-bound but radiant with pride, sat in the front row. She didn't know the truth. As far as she was concerned, her daughter had found a whirlwind romance with a wealthy businessman. The lie tasted bitter, but it was kinder than the truth. And then Emma saw him. Nathan Blackwood stood at the front of the chapel, every inch the powerful CEO in his perfectly tailored black suit. At 35, he cut an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. His steel-grey eyes met hers, and Emma felt a chill race down her spine. This was the man who'd approached her at the diner where she worked. Having somehow learned of her family's desperate circumstances, the man who'd offered a solution that seemed too good to be true, the man who would be her husband in name only. As Emma walked down the aisle alone, her father long gone from their lives, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something far more complicated than a simple business arrangement. There was something in Nathan's eyes, something beyond their usual coldness, that made her pulse quicken with uncertainty. The ceremony was brief, the words hollow. When Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, a stunning diamond that felt impossibly heavy, his touch was impersonal, clinical. They exchanged mechanical I-do's and a kiss that was nothing more than a brush of lips, practiced and meaningless. But it was what happened after, during the small reception in Nathan's penthouse office, that made Emma's blood run cold. "Mrs. Blackwood," he said, the name foreign on his tongue, as he led her onto a private balcony. "There's something you should know about our arrangement." His voice dropped, almost lost in the Manhattan wind. "This marriage isn't just about keeping fortune hunters at bay or providing you with financial security." Emma's heart stopped as Nathan leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear as he whispered words that would shatter any illusion of simplicity in their arrangement. "Someone is trying to destroy everything I've built, and you, my convenient new bride, are going to help me catch them." The Manhattan skyline stretched out before them, a glittering maze of lights and shadows. Emma stood frozen, her new wedding ring catching the dying sunlight, and realized that she hadn't just married a billionaire. She'd married his secrets too, and something told her that those secrets could get them both killed. The Blackwood penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower in the Upper East Side, a monument to wealth and power that made Emma feel like an intruder in her own home. Home! The word felt wrong, even in her thoughts. This wasn't home, it was an elaborate stage where she would play her part in Nathan's mysterious game. Her wedding dress hung like a ghost in the massive walk-in closet of her separate bedroom suite, a reminder of the surreal day that had just ended. Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights below blurring through her unshed tears. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in, along with Nathan's cryptic warning from the balcony. A soft knock at her door made her quickly wipe her eyes. "Come in." Instead of Nathan, an elderly woman entered, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun. "Mrs. Blackwood, I'm Mrs. Reynolds, the housekeeper." Her kind face creased with a warm smile that seemed out of place in this cold, modernist space. "I've brought you some tea." "Please, call me Emma." She accepted the delicate porcelain cup gratefully. "And thank you." Mrs. Reynolds studied her, with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. "The first night is always the hardest, dear, though I suspect your situation is unique." Emma's hand trembled slightly, causing the tea to ripple. "What do you mean?" "I've worked for Mr. Blackwood for 15 years, long enough to know when something's amiss." Mrs. Reynolds straightened a throw pillow with practiced efficiency. "This is the first time I've seen him so unsettled." Before Emma could question this, her phone buzzed with a text from Lucy. "Are you okay? Do you need me to come get you?" Emma typed back quickly, "I'm fine. Get some rest. Love you." She wasn't fine, but Lucy had finals to worry about. "Mr. Blackwood requests your presence in his study," Mrs. Reynolds announced, making Emma jump. She hadn't heard the housekeeper answer her phone. "He says it's urgent." The journey to Nathan's study felt like walking to the principal's office. If the principal were a billionaire with dangerous secrets. Emma followed Mrs. Reynolds through the maze-like penthouse, noting security cameras at every turn. The place felt more like a fortress than a home. Nathan's study occupied the corner of the top floor, with views of Central Park to the west and the East River to the east. He stood at a wall of monitors displaying financial data and security feeds, his jacket discarded and sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Without turning, he addressed Mrs. Reynolds. "That will be all, Margaret. Please, ensure we're not disturbed." The door clicked shut with finality. Emma stood awkwardly in her simple black dress. She'd changed out of the wedding gown hours ago, feeling like a child summoned for punishment. "Your sister," Nathan said abruptly, finally facing her. "She doesn't trust me. Can you blame her?" A hint of something, amusement, flickered across his face. No, but her protective instincts, while admirable, could complicate things. He moved to a leather chair, gesturing for Emma to sit opposite him. "We need to establish some ground rules. Beyond the contract I signed. The contract protects my business interests. These rules will protect your life." The bluntness of his words sent a chill down Emma's spine. "First, trust no one, not even my employees. Second, maintain appearances at all costs. And third," he leaned forward, his grey eyes intense, "don't go digging into my past." Emma matched his posture, anger overriding her fear. "You're asking me to play a part in some dangerous scheme without knowing why. That's not fair." "Fair?" Nathan's laugh was harsh. "I'm paying your mother's medical bills and your sister's tuition. I'd say that's more than fair." "Money isn't everything, Mr. Blackwood." "Nathan," he corrected automatically, "you'll need to use my first name in public." He stood, pacing to the window. "Someone in my inner circle is a traitor. They've been systematically sabotaging deals, leaking information, and now—" He trailed off. "Now what?" "Now they're making threats. Personal ones." He turned. Back to her, his expression unreadable. "I needed someone above suspicion. Someone with verifiable reasons for marrying me. Financial desperation, family obligations. Someone who couldn't possibly be part of the corporate world's machinations." "Someone expendable," Emma said bitterly. "Someone genuine." His response was quick, almost defensive. "Your background check showed no hidden agendas, no suspicious connections, just a woman trying to save her family." He paused. "That kind of determination, it's rare." Before Emma could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. Mrs. Reynolds entered without waiting for permission, her usual composure shaken. "Sir, there's been a breach in the garage security system." Nathan's reaction was immediate. He crossed to his desk, pressing a series of buttons that made metal shutters descend over the windows. "Get the car ready, back entrance." To Emma, he added, "Pack a small bag. Essentials only. We leave in 10 minutes." "Leave! But we just got here." "This is what I meant about complications." His hand on her elbow was firm as he guided her to the door. "Welcome to marriage, Mrs. Blackwood. I hope you're ready to run." In her room, throwing items into a bag with shaking hands, Emma caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman who stared back looked scared but determined. She'd agreed to this marriage to save her family, but now she wondered who would save her from her own husband's demons. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The message made her blood freeze. "You married a dead man walking. Get out while you can." Outside, a helicopter's blades cut through the night air, and Emma realized that her year of pretend marriage had just become very, very real. The helicopter cut through the darkness like a blade, leaving Manhattan's glittering skyline behind. Emma sat rigid in her seat, the events of the past hour playing through her mind like a fever dream. The hasty packing, Nathan's terse instructions, Mrs. Reynolds pressing a burner phone into her hands with a worried look. And now this, flying to God knows where, with a man who was becoming more enigmatic by the minute. Nathan sat across from her in the luxurious cabin, his attention divided between 3 phones and a laptop. The blue glow from the screens cast shadows across his face, making him look almost ghostly. He hadn't spoken since takeoff, except to Embark coordinates to the pilot. Are you going to tell me where we're going? Emma finally asked, having to raise her voice over the whir of the rotors. Nathan's eyes flicked to her briefly. Massachusetts. I have a property in the Berkshires that isn't in any public records. And my family. That message is being handled. He held up one of the phones. I've arranged for private security for both your mother and sister. They're being moved to secure locations as we speak. Emma's heart clenched. They must be terrified. Something in her voice made Nathan look up properly. He studied her for a long moment, then set aside his devices. I know this isn't what you signed up for. I signed up for a pretend marriage, not a thriller novel. She tried to keep the accusation out of her voice, but it crept in anyway. Why didn't you warn me? Would you have agreed if I had? Yes. The firmness of her answer seemed to surprise him. I would have liked to know what I was walking into, but my reasons for accepting haven't changed. My family needs help, and I'm not a coward. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. No, you're not. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But you should be afraid. These people, they're ruthless. They've already killed one person who got too close to exposing them. Emma's breath caught. Who? My former CFO, Robert Chen. Official. Ruling was suicide, but Nathan's jaw tightened. He was investigating discrepancies in our Asian market operations. The night before his death, he called to say he'd found something big, something that went beyond corporate espionage. The helicopter banked sharply, making Emma grab her armrest. Through the window, she could see they were leaving the coast. Behind, heading inland over dark forests. What did he find? I don't know. His files were encrypted and the key died with him. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. But whatever it was, it's connected to a series of suspicious acquisitions dating back 3 years. Companies bought and gutted, patents buried, researchers who suddenly changed their findings or disappeared altogether. And you think someone inside your company is behind it? I know they are. The patterns are too precise, the timing too perfect. Someone with intimate knowledge of our operations is orchestrating everything. His voice dropped. That's why I needed you. As bait, Emma realized. As a wild card, Nathan corrected. They've been watching me for months, tracking my movements, monitoring my communications. But you're an unknown variable, someone they couldn't have predicted or prepared for. A thought struck Emma. The diner. How did you really find me? Nathan's hesitation was brief but noticeable. Your mother's doctor, Dr. Winters. She's an old friend. She told you about our situation? She mentioned she had a patient whose daughter was working 3 jobs to pay for experimental treatments. It caught my attention. He paused. I did my research before approaching you. Your dedication to your family, your clean background, your integrity, all of it made you perfect for what I needed. A convenient pawn, Emma said bitterly. A partner. The intensity in his voice made her look up. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly, Emma, but I am asking you to work with me. Together, we might have a chance of exposing whoever's behind this before they destroy everything I've built, or worse. The helicopter began to descend, the dark mass of trees below opening up to reveal a clearing with what looked like a modern lodge. As they touched down, Emma noticed something that made her blood run cold. Fresh tire tracks in the gravel driveway. Nathan saw them too. His entire demeanor changed in an instant, tension radiating from every muscle. He pulled a gun from under his jacket. How long had he been carrying that? And signaled to the pilot to cut the engines. Stay close to me, he ordered, his voice low and deadly serious. And remember, if anything happens to me, there's a letter in my downtown office safe. Combination is your birthday. It has everything you'll need to protect yourself and your family. Nathan, I mean it. His free hand caught her wrist, his grip firm but not painful. "Promise me you'll get that letter if things go wrong." Emma nodded, her throat too tight for words. As they prepared to exit the helicopter, she realized two things. First, that Nathan had memorized her birthday, and second, that despite everything, she was more worried about him than herself. The night air was crisp with early autumn when they stepped out, gravel crunching under their feet. Nathan kept Emma slightly behind him as they approached the house, his gun held ready. The security panel by the door was dark. Power cut. "If I tell you to run," Nathan whispered, "you run, no questions, no hesitation." But before Emma could respond, a familiar voice called out from the darkness, "Hello, little brother. Didn't expect to see me at your honeymoon hideaway, did you?" The shock on Nathan's face told Emma everything she needed to know. Whoever was waiting for them in that dark house, they weren't just another corporate enemy. This was family. The man who stepped out of the shadows could have been Nathan's ghost from 10 years in the future. Same sharp features, same commanding presence, but with silver threading through his dark hair and lines of bitterness etched around his mouth. He held himself with the lazy confidence of a predator, hands raised in mock surrender. "Put the gun down, Nathan. Is that any way to greet your big brother?" Alexander Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Especially when I've come all this way to congratulate the happy couple." Nathan's grip on his weapon didn't waver. "How did you find this place?" "Please." Alexander rolled his eyes. "I've known about your little bolt hole for months. Did you really think you could keep secrets from me?" His gaze shifted to Emma, and she felt a chill despite the mild night. "Though I must admit, your latest secret took me by surprise." "Hello, sister-in-law." Emma felt Nathan tense beside her. "Don't talk to her. Now, no need to be rude." Alexander took a step forward, ignoring the gun. "I have to say you've outdone yourself this time, Nathan. A waitress. Our father would be rolling in his grave." "Our father's opinion stopped mattering the day he chose you over the company's integrity." Nathan's voice was ice, just like yours. "Stopped mattering when you tried to tank our stock to force a buyout. Ancient history." Alexander waved his hand dismissively. "I'm here as family. When I heard my little brother had suddenly married, I had to see for myself what kind of woman could thaw the great Nathan Blackwood's frozen heart." He focused on Emma again. "Though I suspect there's more to this arrangement than romance. Isn't there, my dear?" Emma lifted her chin. "I love my husband." The lie came easily, probably because part of her was starting to wish it wasn't a lie at all. Alexander's laugh was sharp. "Of course you do. The same way every gold digger who's tried to sink her claws into the Blackwood fortune has loved us." He pulled something from his pocket, just a phone, but Nathan shifted to shield Emma anyway. "Tell me, did he mention that his last girlfriend almost died in a convenient accident after asking too many questions?" "Don't," Nathan growled. "No. What about the board member who had a fatal heart attack after opposing your acquisition of Chen Medical? Or perhaps—" "That's enough." Nathan's voice could have frozen hell. "Say what you came to say and get out." Alexander's expression hardened. "Fine, direct, just like old times." He took another step forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop digging into the overseas subsidiaries. You're going to call off your internal investigation. And you're going to step down as CEO, citing personal reasons. Perhaps a desire to focus on your new marriage. Or what? Or the next tragic accident might involve your lovely new bride, or perhaps her ailing mother. I hear experimental treatments can be so unpredictable." Emma felt the world tilt. This man wasn't just making threats. He was responsible for Robert Chen's death, for all of it. And Nathan had known. "You won't touch them." Nathan's finger tightened on the trigger. "I won't let you destroy any more lives, like you destroyed mine." Alexander's composure cracked, revealing a glimpse of raw fury. "You took everything from me. My inheritance, my reputation, my place in the company. Did you really think I'd just disappear, that I wouldn't find a way to take it all back?" "You destroyed yourself," Nathan shot back. "The embezzlement, the insider trading, those were your choices. I just refused to cover them up. You chose the company over your own blood. I chose right over wrong, the way our mother taught us before." Nathan cut himself off, but Emma heard the pain in his voice. Alexander's face twisted. "Before she died. Go ahead, say it. Before she died, thinking her precious younger son could do no wrong, while I was the family disappointment." Emma watched the brothers, seeing years of hurt and betrayal playing out before her. Nathan's gun hand had started to shake slightly. Whatever had happened between them went deeper than corporate rivalry. "Last chance, little brother." Alexander's voice was deadly quiet. "Walk away, or I'll dismantle everything you love piece by piece." Time seemed to slow. Emma saw Nathan's resolve wavering, saw him weighing his company against the lives of her family. She couldn't let him make that choice alone. Without warning, she stepped forward, placing herself between the brothers. "Mr. Blackwood, Alexander, you're right about one thing. This marriage isn't just about romance." She felt Nathan tense behind her, but kept going. "It's about justice. Your brother hired me to help him find proof of corporate sabotage, and I've already made copies of everything I've found." Alexander's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check your phone. Someone's been downloading your private files for the past 10 minutes. Emma silently thanked Lucy for all those coding lessons she'd insisted on giving her. The burner phone Mrs. Reynolds had slipped her was running the program right now, using the Bluetooth connection to Alexander's device. A long shot, but his arrogance had worked in their favor. He hadn't even questioned why she'd been standing. So still, one hand in her pocket, Alexander frantically checked his phone, his face draining of color. "You little, if anything happens to Nathan, my family, or me, everything goes public." Emma's heart was pounding, but her voice stayed steady. "Every transaction, every shell company, every deleted email. I may be a waitress, but I'm not stupid. And I protect what's mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Alexander laughed, a cold, empty sound. "Well played, little brother. You finally found someone as ruthless as you are." He backed toward the trees, where Emma now noticed a car waiting. "But remember, you can't watch her every minute of every day, and accidents happen so quickly." He melted into the darkness, the sound of his car fading into the night. Emma's knees finally gave out, and she felt Nathan catch her before she could fall. "That," he said, his voice rough with something that might have been admiration, "was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." Emma turned in his arms, seeing real fear in his eyes, fear for her. "I don't have any copies of his files, you know. The program was just pinging his Bluetooth. Basic stuff Lucy taught me." Nathan silenced her with a kiss. Unlike their wedding kiss, this one was real. Desperate, grateful, and terrified all at once. When he pulled back, his mask of control had cracked completely. "I didn't know it was him," he whispered. "All this time I suspected everyone but my own brother. God, Emma, I've put you in the middle of a war you never—" "Hey!" She touched his face, feeling the slight tremor in his jaw. "I chose this. Remember? No more lies, no more holding back. We face this together." Over Nathan's shoulder, she saw the first light of dawn breaking over the trees. They had survived the night, but Emma knew this was just the beginning. Alexander's threats hung in the air like poison, and somewhere in the complex web of Blackwood, Enterprises lay the proof they needed to stop him. But for now, in the growing light, Emma let herself acknowledge the truth she'd been fighting since their wedding day. She was falling in love with her husband, and that made her both stronger and more vulnerable than ever. Dawn painted the Berkshires lodge in shades of gold, but Emma couldn't appreciate the beauty. She sat at the kitchen island, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, watching Nathan pace as he made calls. After Alexander's departure, they'd swept the house for bugs and surveillance equipment, finding 3 hidden cameras and a listening device. Now they were truly alone, but that fact brought little comfort. "I need everything we have on the Chen medical acquisition," Nathan barked into his phone. "And get me the internal audit from last quarter. No, not the public version, the original files." He paused, listening. "I don't care if they're encrypted. Find a way." Emma's own phone buzzed, the regular one, not the burner. A text from Lucy. "Mum's settled in at the new facility. Private room, amazing doctors. But she's asking questions." What should I tell her? The guilt was overwhelming. Their mother thought they'd moved her to a better hospital as a wedding gift from Nathan. More lies, more secrets. Emma typed back, "Tell her I'll visit soon. Love you both." "Your family's safe." Nathan set down his phone, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I've got people I trust watching them." "Do you?" Emma met his gaze. "Trust them, I mean. After what we learned about Alexander." Nathan's face darkened. He crossed to the window, staring out at the misty mountains. "I trusted Alexander once, more than anyone. When our mother died—" He broke off, his shoulders tense. Emma stood, moving to his side. "Tell me." For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "She died when I was 16. Cancer. Alexander was 21, already working for our father. The night before she died, she made me promise something." His voice grew distant, lost in memory. "She said, 'Nathan, the company isn't just about money. It's about helping people. Don't let them forget that.'" "Them? Your father and Alexander?" Nathan nodded. "Father was obsessed with growth, profit margins, market share. The medical research division, our mother's pride and joy, was just another asset to him, but she believed in its mission, finding cures, helping patients who couldn't afford treatment." Something clicked in Emma's mind. "Like my mother's experimental therapy. Dr. Winters is one of the few who still remembers my mother's vision." Nathan turned to face her. "After Mother died, Alexander sided with our father. Said I was naive, to prioritize research over profits. When I took control of the company, you refocused on medical research," Emma finished. "That's why Alexander hates you. You chose your mother's legacy over his ambitions. The company was bleeding money on failed trials and dead-end research. Father died, thinking I would destroy everything he built." A bitter smile crossed Nathan's face. "Then we had a breakthrough, a revolutionary cancer treatment developed in our labs. The stock price tripled overnight. And Alexander wanted back in. He tried to force a hostile takeover. When that failed, he started working behind the scenes. I just never imagined he'd go this far." Nathan's fist clenched. "Robert Chen must have found proof of his involvement. That's why—" A sharp crack echoed through the morning air. Nathan moved with lightning speed, tackling Emma to the floor as the window above them shattered. They crawled behind the kitchen island as more shots rang out. "Sniper," Nathan growled, pulling his gun. "In the trees to the east." Emma's heart hammered. Alexander, his style. Nathan pressed a button on his watch. "Security team's 3 minutes out. We need to get to the panic room." "The what?" Instead of answering, Nathan reached under the island and pressed what looked like a wine rack. A section of wall silently slid open, revealing a steel door. More shots peppered the kitchen. Emma felt Nathan's arm around her waist, his body shielding her as they made a dash for the hidden entrance. Inside, banks of monitors showed every angle of the property through infrared cameras. "There!" Nathan pointed to a heat signature in the distance. Single shooter professional based on the pattern. He grabbed a laptop from a shelf, typing rapidly. We need to access Chen's files before Alexander can destroy them. The encryption key. It has to be something personal. Emma watched the monitors as black-clad figures, Nathan's security team, converged on the sniper's position. You said Chen called you the night before he died. What exactly did he say? Nathan's fingers stilled on the keyboard. He was agitated, said he'd found something in the Hong Kong subsidiaries, something about Project Phoenix. Your mother's cancer research? That was Project Lazarus. Nathan frowned. Phoenix was something else, something unauthorized. Emma's mind raced. The pieces were starting to fit together. Alexander's shell companies, the suspicious acquisitions, the buried patents. What if Alexander didn't just want to take over the company? What if he's been using it to hide something bigger? Before Nathan could respond, one of the monitors flashed red. The security team had reached the sniper's position, but the thermal signature was gone. In its place, they found only a rifle on a timer, rigged to fire automatically. It was a distraction, Nathan realized, horror dawning on his face. He wanted us in here, the safest room in the house, with all our evidence. A new message appeared on the laptop screen. Say goodbye to your insurance policy, little brother. Suddenly, the monitors went dark. The ventilation system shut down, and the light on the wall turned from green to red, accompanied by a mechanical voice. Oxygen purge initiated. 3 minutes to completion. They weren't in a panic room. They were in a trap, and they had exactly 3 minutes to find a way out before the room designed to keep them safe became their tomb. 2 minutes and 45 seconds of oxygen remaining, and Emma was learning that imminent death had a way of crystallizing one's thoughts. The panic room was approximately 15 by 15 feet, reinforced steel on all sides, with no visible ventilation ducts large enough to crawl through. Nathan was at the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys as he attempted to override the system. The emergency release is biometric, he muttered, more to himself than to her. But Alexander must have corrupted the database. It's not recognizing my prints. Emma forced herself to think past the growing tightness in her chest. What about Robert Chen? Could he have built in a back door? Maybe, but we'd need his... Nathan's eyes widened. The encryption key. It's the same system. He turned to the laptop, still displaying Alexander's taunting message. Chen wouldn't have used anything obvious. Not his birthday, not his wife's. What was Project Phoenix? Emma asked suddenly. The real one, not whatever Alexander corrupted it into. Nathan's fingers hesitated over the keys. It was our mother's idea, a complete revamp of our research division. She used to say... He broke off, coughing as the oxygen levels continued to drop. Used to say what? From the ashes, we rise. Nathan typed rapidly. In Mandarin, Chen's native language. The screen flickered. Files began decrypting, flooding the display with documents, spreadsheets, and emails. At the same time, the mechanical voice announced 2 minutes to completion. Emma grabbed the laptop, scanning the files as quickly as she could. Look, shell companies in Hong Kong, all connected to medical research facilities. But these aren't hospitals, they're weapons development. Nathan's voice was grim. Alexander's been using our medical patents to create biological weapons. That's what Chen discovered. The pieces clicked together in Emma's mind. The acquisitions, the disappeared researchers, he's building something terrible. She scrolled through more documents, fighting against her growing dizziness. Here, Project Phoenix. It's not just weapons. He's been testing them on terminal patients in underground facilities. Nathan swore, his usual composure cracking. All this time I thought he just wanted money and power. But this... He slammed his fist against the wall. Our mother's legacy perverted into this. 1 minute to completion. Emma's vision was starting to blur, but one detail caught her eye. "Nathan, look at this email from your mother's personal account, dated the day before she died. It's addressed to both you and Alexander." Nathan leaned in, squinting at the screen. The email was simple. Just a few lines expressing her love for both her sons and her hope that they would carry on her work together. It was signed with a phrase in Mandarin, "Together my phoenixes rise." The override code. Nathan practically lunged for the control panel. "It needs both of us. That's what Chen discovered. Mother never wanted us to work alone." Fingers trembling, he typed in the Mandarin characters. Nothing happened. 30 seconds to completion. "It needs Alexander's biometrics too," Nathan realized, despair creeping into his voice. "We're trapped." Emma's oxygen-deprived brain made one last desperate leap. "No, look at the date on those facilities. Alexander started them 3 years ago. Before that, he was still part of the company." Nathan's eyes lit up with understanding. "His old access codes, 15 seconds to completion." Nathan typed again, this time entering a string of numbers along with the Mandarin phrase. The panel beeped once, twice. The door slid open with a hiss of released pressure. Emma and Nathan practically fell out into the hallway, gulping the fresh air. Through the windows, Emma could see Nathan's security team sweeping the grounds, the morning sun now high in the sky. "Your brother," Emma managed between breaths, "is a psychopath." Nathan's laugh was more than a little hysterical. "Welcome to the family." His hand found hers, squeezing tight. "I'm sorry for all of this. When I asked you to marry me, I never thought that your brother would try to kill us on our first day." Emma squeezed back. "Honestly, it's still better than some dates I've been on." The joke fell flat as Nathan pulled her into his arms, his heart hammering against her chest. "We have to stop him. These weapons, if they get into the wrong hands, they already are in the wrong hands." Emma pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "But now we have proof, real proof, and a target on our backs." Nathan's expression hardened. "We need to move. Alexander will know his trap failed, and he'll have a backup plan." As if on cue, Emma's phone buzzed. The message made her blood run cold. "Check the news, Mrs. Blackwood. Breaking story about corporate fraud at Blackwood Enterprises. Seems your new husband has been embezzling funds, manipulating stock prices, and conducting illegal medical experiments." Such a scandal. Nathan read the message over her shoulder, his face darkening. "He's trying to destroy the company's reputation before we can expose him. Make any accusations we make look like desperate deflection." Emma was already pulling up news sites. The story was everywhere, complete with doctored documents and false testimonies. The stock price was in free fall. "Nathan," she hesitated. "The experimental treatment facility where my mother is funded by Blackwood Enterprises," Nathan finished. "If the company goes down—" They shared a look of understanding. Alexander hadn't just trapped them in a panic room, he'd trapped them in an impossible choice. They could run, taking the evidence of his weapons program to the authorities. But by the time they proved their case, the company would be in ruins. The medical research division would be shut down, leaving hundreds of patients, including Emma's mother, without treatment. Or they could try to save the company's reputation, but that would mean playing right into Alexander's hands. There might be a third option. Emma's mind was racing. "But you're not going to like it." Nathan studied her face. "You want to fight fire with fire. Your brother thinks he knows exactly how we'll react, so let's do something he'd never expect." Emma's smile was fierce. "Let's give him exactly what he wants." "You mean call a press conference, announce your resignation as CEO?" Emma's eyes glinted. "And name me as your replacement." Nathan stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, a matching smile spread across his face. Alexander would never suspect. A waitress, Emma finished. Exactly. He'll think you're having a breakdown, making desperate moves. He'll get sloppy, trying to take advantage, while we use your position to access everything he's been hiding. Nathan pulled her close again, this time with admiration rather than fear. You're brilliant and slightly terrifying. I learned from the best. Emma kissed him briefly, then pulled back to business. But we have to move fast. Before he realizes, a new message appeared on her phone, this one from Lucy. Mom's doctors. Just called. Something's wrong with her treatment. They're saying the medication isn't working anymore. Emma met Nathan's eyes, seeing her own determination reflected back. Alexander had just made his next move. The game was on. The Blackwood Enterprises boardroom felt like a gladiator arena. Emma stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 78th floor of their Manhattan headquarters, adjusting the sleeve of her newly tailored Chanel suit. In the glass's reflection, she could see the board members filing in, their faces ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. 48 hours had passed since their near-death experience in the Berkshires. 48 hours of frantic preparation, leaked stories, and carefully orchestrated chaos. Nathan's announcement of his temporary step-down had sent shockwaves through Wall Street. The stock had plummeted further, exactly as they'd planned. Mrs. Blackwood, the voice dripped with disdain. Regina Walsh, head of the Compensation Committee and one of Alexander's closest allies, took her seat at the long mahogany table. I must say, this is unprecedented. Emma turned, channeling every ounce of Nathan's boardroom presence she'd studied over the past 2 days. These are unprecedented times, Mrs. Walsh. I believe that's why we're here. Other board members settled in. Lawrence Chen, Robert's younger brother, his face carefully neutral. William Porter, the ancient head of the audit committee. Diana Rodriguez, their newest member and an unknown quantity. 12 in total, with Emma's fate in their hands. Nathan sat at the far end, his expression unreadable. They'd barely had time to breathe since implementing their plan, let alone discuss the growing intensity of their feelings for each other. Every moment had been focused on preparing for this meeting, their one chance to outmaneuver Alexander. Before we begin, Regina said, shuffling papers importantly, I must express the board's concern about Mr. Blackwood's unusual recommendation. With all due respect, Mrs. Blackwood, your qualifications include a lifetime of practical business experience. Emma cut in smoothly. I built my first company at 19, a small catering service that supported my family through crisis. I've managed budgets, employees, and client relationships while working multiple jobs to fund my sister's education. I understand both the human and financial costs of every decision. She moved to the head of the table, standing tall. But more importantly, I understand loyalty. To family, to principles, and to this company's founding mission. Lawrence Chen stirred at that. Emma met his eyes, seeing a flicker of his brother Robert's determination there. Pretty words, Regina scoffed, but this company needs experienced leadership, not inspirational speeches, especially with these troubling allegations of financial misconduct. You mean the conveniently timed leak of doctored documents? Emma raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing, isn't it? Almost as interesting as the sudden problems with our medical research division's treatment protocols. A murmur went through the room. Emma pressed her advantage, pulling up a presentation on the massive screen behind her. What you're seeing is a comprehensive audit of every division's performance over the past 3 years. Pay particular attention to the pattern of acquisitions in our Asian markets. She clicked through slides showing complex financial data she and Nathan had spent all night analyzing. Notice anything unusual about these shell companies? William Porter leaned forward, squinting through his glasses. These routing numbers, they're sequential. Exactly, Emma nodded, almost as if they were set up simultaneously through the same source. A source that bears a striking resemblance to certain offshore accounts connected to former executive leadership. Regina's face flushed. "You dare accuse—" "I dare to ask questions," Emma corrected. "The same questions Robert Chen was asking before his death. The same questions that led to this supposed evidence of misconduct being leaked." She placed both hands on the table, meeting each board member's gaze. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to look at the facts. Someone is systematically attacking this company, not just its stock price, but its fundamental mission, the medical research that saves lives, the treatments that give hope to families like mine." A notification pinged on her phone, a message from Lucy about their mother's deteriorating condition. Emma pushed down her personal fear, focusing on the task at hand. Nathan Blackwood has led this company with integrity and vision. His decision to step aside temporarily is not an admission of guilt. It's a strategic move to protect Blackwood Enterprises while we investigate these attacks. As his wife, I have a unique perspective on both his character and his commitment to this company's values. She straightened up. "I'm not asking for a long-term appointment. I'm asking for 30 days to prove that these allegations are not just false, but part of a coordinated attempt to destroy everything this company stands for." Silence fell over the boardroom. Emma could feel the weight of their judgment, their prejudices, their fears, but she also saw something else: uncertainty. The seeds of doubt about Alexander's carefully constructed narrative had been planted. Diana Rodriguez spoke for the first time. "And if we grant this unusual request, what's your first move as CEO?" Emma smiled, pressing a button on her presentation remote. A new slide appeared, showing a revolutionary restructuring of the Medical Research Division. "I call it Project Renaissance, a complete overhaul of our treatment protocols, combining the innovation of our mother's original vision with cutting-edge security measures to protect our intellectual property." She saw Nathan's slight nod of approval, even as her phone buzzed. Again, this time the message made her blood run cold. "Clever performance, sister-in-law. But check the hospital security feeds, now." Emma's tablet lit up with a live video feed, her mother's hospital room, a figure in scrubs checking IV bags, a close-up of the medication label showing a subtle discrepancy. Someone was tampering with her mother's treatment. Right now. The board members were still discussing her proposal, unaware of her internal panic. Emma met Nathan's eyes across the table, seeing her own fear reflected there. They'd known Alexander would retaliate, but not like this, not so directly. She had seconds to decide: continue the board meeting and secure her position as CEO, or race to the hospital to save her mother. Power or family, the company's future or her mother's life. But as she looked around the boardroom, at the faces of people who'd devoted their lives to this company's mission, Emma realized something crucial. This wasn't just about power or family anymore. It was about stopping a man who would poison innocent patients to maintain his control. She straightened her spine, facing the board with renewed determination. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need to call a brief recess. But before I do, I want to show you one more thing." She pulled up the hospital security feed on the main screen. "This is happening right now at one of our treatment facilities. Watch closely, because what you're about to see proves everything I've been saying about the attacks on this company." The boardroom erupted in chaos as they witnessed the tampering in real time. Emma was already moving, her voice carrying over. The commotion. "Mr. Chen, please accompany security to the hospital immediately. Mrs. Rodriguez, contact the FDA. Mr. Porter, I need every record of medication changes in the past 24 hours. She strode toward the door, Nathan falling into step beside her. The rest of you reconvene in 1 hour. By then, I'll have proof not just of attempted murder, but of exactly who's behind it." Regina Walsh's face had gone pale. "You can't possibly—" "I can. I will. And when I'm done, anyone who helped poison innocent patients for profit will wish they'd never heard the name Blackwood." Emma paused at the door, her voice carrying the weight of both threat and promise. 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go far." As they rushed toward the elevator, Nathan spoke low and urgent. "Security teams already en route to the hospital. But Alexander wouldn't be this obvious unless it's another trap," Emma finished. "Good thing we're not going to the hospital." Nathan's eyebrow raised. "We're not?" "No." Emma's smile was fierce as the elevator doors closed. "We're going to pay your brother a visit. Because right now, while he thinks we're rushing to save my mother, his real plan is happening somewhere else. And I know exactly where that is." The elevator began its descent, and Emma silently prayed she was right. Because if she wasn't, she might have just sacrificed both her mother's life and her one chance at saving Blackwood Enterprises. But something in her gut told her she was about to uncover the truth that Robert Chen had died trying to expose, and this time Alexander wouldn't see them coming. The basement laboratory of Blackwood Enterprises' unmarked research facility in New Jersey looked exactly like Emma expected, sterile, high-tech, and completely off the books. As she and Nathan crept through the dimly lit corridors, her mind raced with the implications of what they'd discovered in Chen's files. "Third door on the left," Nathan whispered, gun drawn. "According to the blueprints, it's a server room. But the power consumption is 10 times what it should be," Emma finished, "because it's not just storing data. They'd pieced it together during the frantic car ride. Alexander's weapons program needed specialized conditions, temperature control, biological containment, dedicated power supply, the kind of setup that would be impossible to hide in a normal facility, but beneath an abandoned research building officially closed for renovation. Perfect cover. Emma's phone buzzed. A message from Lawrence Chen. "Hospital secured. Your mother's medication was tampered with, but we caught it in time. She's safe." Relief flooded through her, followed by grim satisfaction. She'd been right. Alexander's hospital attack had been a diversion, meant to draw them away from his real move. "Ready?" Nathan's hand was on the door handle. Emma nodded, withdrawing the key card they'd found in Robert Chen's encrypted files. The lock clicked. Open. The room beyond was nothing like a standard server farm. Glass containment units lined the walls, filled with swirling liquids in various shades of amber. Screens displayed molecular structures and test results. And in the center, Alexander Blackwood stood calmly waiting for them. "I have to admit," he said, not looking up from a tablet he was studying, "I didn't expect you to figure it out so quickly, though I suppose I underestimated the power of true love." His smile was razor-sharp. "Or whatever this touching little partnership is. It's over, Alexander." Nathan's gun remained steady. "We have proof of everything. The weapons program, the patient testing, Robert Chen's murder." "Proof?" Alexander finally looked up. "Brother, I'm counting on it. Why do you think I let you find Chen's files?" Emma's blood ran cold. "Let us?" "Of course." Alexander set down his tablet, spreading his arms. "The panic room trap? Please, if I'd wanted you dead, you would be. No, I needed you to find just enough evidence to convince yourself you'd discovered my secret." His gaze fixed on Emma. "And you played your part beautifully. The passionate speech to the board, the dramatic exit. You've given me exactly what I needed: chaos and distraction." A low hum began to emanate from the containment units. Emma saw the amber liquid starting to move more rapidly, its color deepening to a dangerous-looking red. "You see," Alexander continued, "while you were busy playing CEO and rushing to save Mommy Dearest, the real work was happening. 50 facilities just like this one across 3 continents, all waiting for this moment. The acquisitions, Emma realized. The medical research companies were never about weapons. Alexander's smile widened. They were about distribution, a global network of treatment centers, all using Blackwood Enterprises protocols, all about to receive a very special delivery. Nathan's face went ash white. The cancer treatments, you've modified them. Modified is such an ugly word. I prefer enhanced. Alexander pressed a button on his tablet. The hum grew louder. Imagine thousands of patients all receiving treatments that seem to work miracles. At first, then 6 months later, a sudden and devastating relapse. And the only cure, a new treatment provided exclusively by a new company risen from the ashes of Blackwood Enterprises' tragic collapse. You're insane, Emma breathed. All those people are necessary sacrifices for progress, just like Robert Chen was, just like our mother. Alexander broke off as Nathan surged forward, fury twisting his features. Don't you dare talk about her! Why not? Her death inspired all of this. Alexander's composure cracked slightly. She chose you, Nathan. Made you promise to carry on her precious legacy. But what about me? I was the one who stayed by her side through every treatment, watched every experimental therapy fail. I learned what you never did, that true progress requires sacrifice. Emma's mind raced. The containment units were nearly glowing now, the distribution sequence clearly beginning. They had minutes, maybe seconds, to stop it. But Alexander held up a remote detonator. One step closer and I trigger the failsafe. Every unit ruptures, releasing enough concentrated pathogen to turn this facility into a quarantine zone. Your choice, little brother. Try to stop me and die here, or walk away and live with the consequences. Emma looked at Nathan, saw the agony of decision in his eyes. Then she remembered something, a detail from Chen's files that suddenly made sense. Your mother's email, she said quietly, the one with the Mandarin phrase. It wasn't just about working together, was it? Alexander's eyes narrowed. What? Together my phoenixes rise. Emma took a careful step forward. She wasn't just being poetic. She was leaving a clue about the failsafe. The same failsafe you built into every facility, because deep down you're still following her example. Nathan caught on. The containment units, their paired systems, requiring both brothers' authentication to trigger a complete shutdown, Emma finished. Because your mother knew that together you were stronger than your differences. Alexander's hand trembled slightly. You're guessing. Am I? Emma nodded to Nathan, who slowly lowered his gun. Then prove me wrong. Press the button. Release the failsafe. But know that if I'm right, you'll not only fail to destroy the evidence, you'll prove that even now you can't fully break free from your mother's influence. The room seemed to hold its breath. The hum of machinery grew to a fever pitch. Alexander's finger hovered over the detonator. Then Nathan spoke, his voice gentle in a way Emma had never heard before. She loved you, Alex. Even at the end, she believed in both of us. Something broke in Alexander's expression. The detonator clattered to the floor. Emma moved fast, grabbing the tablet while Nathan covered his brother. Her fingers flew over the interface, finding the emergency shutdown sequence. She entered Nathan's authorization code, then looked at Alexander. Last chance, she said softly. Help us fix this, or go down as the man who betrayed everything your mother believed in. For a moment she thought he wouldn't respond. Then barely audible, authorization code Alpha Phoenix 713. The containment units powered down with a dying whine. Emergency containment protocols engaged, neutralizing the modified treatments before they could enter the distribution network. As Nathan secured his brother, Emma sent out the shutdown sequence to all 50 facilities. One by one, confirmation messages appeared. Distribution terminated. Contents neutralized. System locked. She sagged against a console, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Lawrence Chen. FBI just arrived at the hospital. They're ready for everything we found. Nathan finished zip-tying Alexander's hands. Emma, about your mother. I'm sorry I asked you to trust me, she interrupted. You trusted me to make the right call. That's what partners do. Alexander laughed bitterly from the floor. Partners? You really have fallen for her, haven't you, Nathan? The waitress, who became a CEO. Mother would have loved it. No, Emma corrected, taking Nathan's hand. She would have loved seeing her sons work together one last time, even if it was just to stop a catastrophe. Through the facility's small windows, emergency lights began to flash as FBI vehicles surrounded the building. The sound of helicopters filled the air. Ready to face the music? Nathan asked his brother. Alexander looked up, and for a moment, Emma saw a glimmer of the young man who had once sat by his mother's hospital bed, desperate to change the world. I thought I could make it mean something, her death. It already meant something, Nathan said quietly. She taught us to help people. You just forgot how to do it without hurting them first. As federal agents swarmed into the facility, Emma felt Nathan squeeze her hand. They'd stopped a catastrophe, saved countless lives, and perhaps even helped two brothers find a measure of peace with their past. But in her pocket, her phone buzzed one final time. A message. From Regina Walsh, emergency board meeting in 1 hour. Time to face the consequences of your little power play, Mrs. Blackwood. Emma smiled. After facing down bioweapons and family drama, a boardroom full of angry executives didn't seem so scary anymore. Besides, she had one more surprise up her sleeve, one that would ensure Blackwood Enterprises returned to its true mission once and for all. The Blackwood Enterprises boardroom looked different in the fading light of sunset. Emma stood at the same window where she'd begun her day, but now she felt changed, tempered by fire, and more certain than ever of what needed to be done. Behind her, the board members filed in for the emergency session. Their faces were grim, having spent the afternoon being briefed by federal agents about Alexander's plot. Regina Walsh looked particularly shaken. The FBI had found evidence of her involvement in covering up the early stages of Alexander's plan, though she'd been unaware of its full scope. Mrs. Blackwood. William Porter's usual formality was tinged with something like respect. I believe you called this meeting to address the company's situation. Emma turned from the window. The wall-mounted screens displayed breaking news. Coverage. Blackwood Enterprises heir arrested in bioweapons plot. Corporate conspiracy exposed. Medical research giant in crisis. Our stock has dropped 60%, Regina said tightly. Investors are fleeing. Partner hospitals are suspending their contracts. The reputation your husband spent years building is exactly what we're going to restore, Emma interrupted. She moved to the head of the table, setting down a thick folder. But first, I need your resignations, all of you. A stunned silence fell over the room. This is outrageous, Regina sputtered. You can't possibly. I can and I am. Emma's voice was steel. The FBI has evidence that every person in this room either actively assisted Alexander's schemes or deliberately ignored warning signs. Except for 3 people. She nodded to Lawrence Chen, Diana Rodriguez, and William Porter. You 3 will remain to help implement the transition. Transition to what? Lawrence asked quietly. Emma pressed a button on the conference table. The screens changed to display a new organizational structure. Project Renaissance isn't just about restructuring our medical research. It's about returning this company to its original mission, helping people. She began laying out documents from her folder. These are the articles of incorporation, modified to create an independent oversight board for all medical research. Half of the seats will be held by patient advocates and medical ethics experts, the other half by research scientists, starting with the ones Alexander tried to silence. The shareholders will never approve, Regina began. They already have. Nathan's voice came from the doorway. He stepped into the room, looking exhausted but determined. Or at least, the controlling interest has, which as of an hour ago is held by the Helena Blackwood Foundation. Emma watched, understanding dawn on their faces. Your mother's charitable trust, she explained. Dormant for years, but never dissolved. Nathan and I have transferred controlling interest in Blackwood Enterprises to the foundation with an independent board of trustees. You're giving away the company? Regina looked faint. We're saving it. Emma pulled up another document. This is the new compensation structure. Executive salaries will be capped. The difference will fund an expansion of our patient assistance programs and research grants. And what about you? Diana Rodriguez leaned forward. Are you stepping down as CEO? No. Emma's smile was confident. I'm just getting started. But I'll be answering to the Foundation's board just like everyone else. No more imperial CEOs, no more unchecked power. We're creating a system of checks and balances that would make Alexander's scheme impossible to repeat. You'll destroy shareholder value, Regina protested weakly. Actually, Lawrence Chen spoke up, early market research suggests the opposite. Our reputation was built on medical innovation and patient care. Returning to those roots with better oversight and transparency, it's exactly what investors and partners want to hear. Emma nodded. The press conference is tomorrow morning. You can either resign now, with generous severance packages and immunity agreements arranged by our friends at the FBI, or you can face federal charges for your roles in Alexander's conspiracy. Your choice. One by one, the board members reached for the resignation letters Emma had prepared. Even Regina, after a long moment of internal struggle, picked up her pen. As the disgraced executives filed out, Emma felt Nathan's hand on her shoulder. She covered it with her own, drawing strength from his presence. There's one more thing, she said to the remaining board members. She pulled out a final document, a research proposal. This was found in Robert Chen's personal files. He'd been working with a team on a breakthrough in targeted cancer therapy, the same kind of treatment that could have saved your mother. Nathan's hand tightened on her shoulder. Emma. The preliminary results are promising. With proper funding and oversight, we could have it in trials within a year. She met each of their eyes. This is what Blackwood Enterprises should be doing, not chasing profits or power, but pursuing innovations that save lives. William Porter cleared his throat, looking moved. I knew Helena Blackwood, you know. She would have been proud to see her company in your hands, my dear. Emma felt tears threatening but held them back. Thank you. Now, shall we get to work? We have a company to rebuild. The next hour was spent outlining transition plans and preparation for the next day's announcements. When they finally finished, the sun had long since set, leaving the Manhattan skyline glittering in the darkness. The remaining board members said their goodbyes, leaving Emma and Nathan alone in the vast boardroom. She stood at the window again, but this time Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind. You were magnificent today, he murmured against her hair. I had good teachers. You, your mother's legacy. She turned in his arms. I just hope it's enough. Rebuilding trust will take time. We have time. His eyes were soft with an emotion that made her heart race. And speaking of trust, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said days ago, when you first showed me what real courage looks like. Emma's breath caught. After everything, the dangers, the revelations, the battles fought and won, this moment felt more terrifying and wonderful than all of it. "I love you," Nathan said simply. "Not because of any contract or arrangement. Not because of how brilliantly you've handled everything. Just because you're you, the strongest, most remarkable woman I've ever known." Emma reached up to touch his face, seeing the truth of it in his eyes. Their marriage had begun as a business arrangement, evolved into a partnership, and somehow, through all the chaos and danger, blossomed into something real and precious. "I love you too," she whispered, "and I'm not going anywhere." Outside the window, a shooting star streaked across the sky, a phoenix rising, Emma thought with a smile. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, press conferences, corporate restructuring, the long process of restoring faith in Blackwood Enterprises. But tonight, in the quiet of the boardroom, where their journey had reached its turning point, Emma and Nathan held each other and knew that some arrangements, no matter how businesslike they begin, are simply destiny in disguise. The garden at Mount Sinai Hospital bloomed with late summer roses, their scent carrying on the morning breeze. Emma sat beside her mother's wheelchair, both of them watching the live stream of Nathan's press conference on a tablet. "Blackwood Enterprises was founded on a promise," Nathan was saying, his voice steady as cameras flashed. "A promise to put patients first. Today, we're not just reaffirming that promise, we're strengthening it." Emma's mother squeezed her hand. "He's quite something, your husband, though I suspect you're the real force behind all these changes." "Mom, don't mom me." Catherine Carter's eyes were sharp despite her illness. "I may be sick, but I'm not blind. I've seen the news reports about Alexander, about the company. What really happened with this marriage?" Emma hesitated. The press conference continued on the tablet, with Nathan outlining the creation of the Helena Blackwood Foundation. In the weeks since Alexander's arrest, they'd managed to stabilize the company, implement their reforms, and begin rebuilding public trust. But they hadn't yet told Emma's family the whole truth. "It started as an arrangement," Emma finally admitted. "Nathan needed someone he could trust, and I needed help with your medical bills." Her mother was quiet for a long moment. And now, Emma watched Nathan on the screen, remembering everything they'd been through. "Now it's real, more real than I ever imagined possible." "Good," Catherine nodded firmly, "because I didn't raise my daughter to settle for anything less than real love, no matter how rich the alternative might be." Before Emma could respond, Lucy came rushing into the garden. "They're ready for you upstairs, Mom. The new treatment team wants to start the revised protocol." The breakthrough therapy Robert Chen had been developing was already showing promising results in preliminary trials. Catherine Carter was among the first patients approved for treatment under Blackwood Enterprises' reformed research program. "You'll be here when I'm done?" her mother asked, as Lucy took the wheelchair handles. Emma kissed her cheek. "Wild horses couldn't drag me away." After they left, Emma turned her attention back to the press conference. Nathan was now taking questions, handling the aggressive reporters with practiced ease. "Mr. Blackwood, is it true your brother has agreed to testify against his co-conspirators?" "Alexander is cooperating fully with federal authorities," Nathan confirmed. "His testimony will help ensure that everyone involved in this conspiracy faces justice." "And what about the rumors that this crisis was engineered to facilitate a corporate takeover by your new wife?" Emma tensed, but Nathan's smile never wavered. "Those rumors ignore one crucial fact. Emma Carter Blackwood has done more to protect this company's true mission in 1 week than most executives do in a lifetime. She didn't take control of Blackwood Enterprises. She helped restore its soul." The reporter pressed on. "But surely her background is exactly what this company needed." Nathan's voice took on an edge. "Someone who understands the human cost of every decision, someone who sees our patients not as profit centers, but as people like her own mother fighting for their lives." If anyone questions her qualifications, I suggest they look at our stock price since the reforms were announced, or the flood of researchers and partners returning to our programs. Emma's phone buzzed. A message from Diana Rodriguez, European. Medical Board approved our new oversight structure. Asia Pacific following suit. We're back in business. Another text followed, this one from Lawrence Chen. Security sweep of Alexander's remaining facilities complete. All clear. He really is giving up everything. The press conference was wrapping up. Nathan's final words caught Emma's attention. My mother used to say that true strength lies not in power over others, but in the power to help others. Thanks. To my wife's courage and vision, Blackwood Enterprises is finally living up to that ideal. Emma's throat tightened. She'd come so far from that desperate young woman who'd agreed to a loveless marriage of convenience. She had gained so much. Love, purpose, the chance to make a real difference in the world. A shadow fell across her tablet. She looked up to find Nathan standing there, having somehow slipped away from the press conference without her noticing. "Thought I'd find you here," he said softly, taking the seat beside her. "How's your mother?" "Starting the new treatment. Lucy's with her." Emma leaned into him. That was quite a press conference. Meant every word. He wrapped an arm around her. The board's quarterly projections came in. We're not just stabilizing, we're growing. Turns out ethical business practices are actually good for the bottom line. Who knew? Emma laughed. Your mother knew. She tried to teach Alexander that, but he lost his way. Nathan's voice was thoughtful. The FBI psychiatrist says he genuinely believed he was doing what was necessary for progress. Power has a way of warping perspective. Is that why you gave up control to the Foundation? Partly. He turned to face her. But mostly because you showed me there was a better way. Shared power, shared responsibility, real partnership. Emma thought about the journey that had brought them here, from their sterile wedding ceremony to the passion they'd found in the midst of danger, from corporate intrigue to genuine love. Partnership, she agreed, in everything. Nathan's kiss was gentle but filled with promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were serious. There's something else we need to discuss. The Foundation Board made a suggestion about the company's future leadership. But before he could continue, Lucy came running back into the garden, tears streaming down her face. Emma's heart stopped until she saw that her sister was smiling. The markers, Lucy gasped. Mum's first blood test after the new treatment. They're already showing improvement. The doctors say they've never seen anything like it. Emma felt Nathan's arm tighten around her as joy and relief flooded through her. This was what it was all about. Not power or profit, but the simple miracle of hope restored. We should celebrate, Nathan said. All of us, as a family. Family. The word held new meaning now. It meant her mother growing stronger, Lucy pursuing her dreams without fear for the future. It meant Nathan by her side, their love forged in crisis and strengthened by choice. It even meant Alexander, who had spent years rebuilding himself in prison, but who had finally remembered what their mother had tried to teach them all. First, Emma said, standing and smoothing her skirt, I believe we have a board meeting. Something about future leadership? Nathan grinned. Right, about that. How do you feel about co-CEOs? As they walked back into the hospital together, Emma thought about all the paths that had led to this moment. A desperate choice, a contract signed, a love unexpected and uncontainable. Some might call it destiny. She called it the best business decision she'd ever made. 1 month after Alexander's arrest, Emma found herself back where it all began, the small diner in Queens, where Nathan had first proposed their arrangement. The vinyl booth squeaked as she slid in, the familiar scent of coffee and griddle grease bringing back memories of long shifts and desperate calculations about medical bills. Feels like another lifetime, doesn't it? Nathan settled across from her, looking endearingly out of place in his bespoke suit. Through the window behind him, she could see their security detail trying to be inconspicuous in an unmarked car. "Sometimes I miss it," Emma admitted, running her fingers over the laminated menu she used to know by heart. The simplicity of it. Take orders, serve food, count tips. No board meetings or press conferences or death threats from disgruntled executives. Nathan's smile was wry. Regina Walsh's arrest that morning had made headlines. Her desperate final attempt to destroy evidence of her collusion with Alexander having backfired spectacularly. I was going to say quarterly projections, but yes, those too. Emma reached across the table to take his hand, though I wouldn't change any of it, not really. No. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Not even our rather unconventional courtship. Emma thought about the past month, the whirlwind of corporate restructuring, legal proceedings and medical breakthroughs. Her mother's treatment was exceeding all expectations. Lucy had made the dean's list while working part-time in Blackwood's new community outreach program. And Emma herself had found not just purpose, but a love she never expected. Especially not that. She squeezed his hand. Though I'm still not sure about this co-CEO proposal. The board unanimously approved it this morning. Nathan's eyes sparkled. While you were visiting your mother, they seemed to think we work better together than apart. Can't imagine why. Before Emma could respond, a familiar voice interrupted. Well, look who's back. Doris, the diner's longtime waitress, beamed down at them. She had been like a second mother to Emma during her time here, always slipping her extra food to take home after long shifts. Doris! Emma stood to hug the older woman. How are you? Better than ever, thanks to you two. Doris winked. My grandson's one of the first recipients of the Blackwood Foundation's college scholarship program. Full ride to NYU. Emma felt Nathan's quiet pride beside her. The scholarship program had been one of their first initiatives, aimed at families who, like Emma's, had been stretched thin by medical bills. He earned it, Nathan said warmly. His essay about healthcare accessibility was exceptional. Doris wiped at her eyes. Look at you both. When you first came in here, Mr. Fancy Suit, I thought you were trouble. But you proved me wrong. She patted Emma's hand. He looks at you the way my Harold used to look at me. That's real love, honey. After Doris left to get their coffee, Emma noticed Nathan fidgeting with something in his pocket. Everything okay? He took a deep breath. Do you know why I wanted to meet here today? Besides the amazing pie? Besides that. He withdrew a small velvet box. This is where I first saw you. Really saw you. You were working a double shift, exhausted, but still took time to help an elderly customer cut up his food. Still smiled and listened to his stories. That's when I knew you were different. Emma's heart stuttered as he opened the box, revealing a stunning sapphire ring. Nathan. We did this backwards, he continued. Marriage first, love later. But I want to do it right this time. He slid out of the booth to kneel beside her. Emma Carter Blackwood, will you marry me? Not for convenience or corporate strategy, but because I want to spend the rest of my life proving worthy of your heart. The diner had gone silent, other customers watching with soft smiles. Through suddenly blurry eyes, Emma saw Doris recording. The moment on her phone. You already are, Emma whispered. Yes, of course, yes. The diner erupted in cheers as Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, next to her original wedding band, which somehow felt different now. Lighter, more real. I have a condition, she said as he sat back down, both of them grinning like teenagers. Anything. We do it small this time, just family and close friends. No corporate politics, no press. She touched the sapphire, which matched the color of the dress she'd worn the day they met. Just us, being real. Deal. Nathan leaned across the table to kiss her, ignoring the continued applause from their audience. Though there is one more piece of business we need to discuss. Emma raised an eyebrow. More surprises. Alexander wrote to me from prison. Nathan's expression turned serious. He's been working with the FBI, helping them track down everyone involved in the conspiracy, but he asked to see you. Emma felt a chill despite the warm diner. Why? He says you remind him of our mother, your conviction, your compassion. Nathan squeezed her hand. You don't have to. I'll go. The decision felt right. He's still your brother, and maybe understanding him better will help prevent anyone else from making the same mistakes. Nathan's eyes filled with love and gratitude. I told you lately that you're remarkable. You could stand to mention it more. Emma smiled, then glanced at her watch. We should go. The Foundation Board meeting starts in an hour, and we still need to review the new research grant proposals. As they stood to leave, Doris hurried over with a paper bag. On the house, she insisted. 2 slices of apple pie for old time's sake. Outside, the autumn sun turned the city golden. Their driver held the car door, but Emma paused on the sidewalk, taking in the familiar street where her life had changed so dramatically. Ready to go change the world? Nathan asked, offering his arm. Emma thought about everything ahead of them. The company's continuing transformation, their upcoming vow renewal, the lives they could touch through their work. She thought about second chances and fresh starts, about love that grew in unexpected places. With you? She took his arm, feeling the weight of both rings on her finger, the past and future combined. Always. As their car pulled away from the curb, Emma's phone lit up with texts from Lucy, pictures of their mother in physical therapy, standing on her own for the first time in months. Another kind of fresh start, another miracle made possible by love and determination. The diner grew smaller in the rear window, but its lessons remained. Sometimes the greatest journeys began in the humblest places, and sometimes the most powerful. Love stories started with a simple business arrangement. Emma squeezed Nathan's hand, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as partners, as lovers, as the force that had given Blackwood Enterprises back its heart. And somewhere, she thought, Helena Blackwood was smiling. The private garden of the Blackwood estate bloomed with white roses and hope. Emma stood before a vintage mirror in what had once been Helena Blackwood's study, now transformed into a bridal suite. Her wedding dress, the one she had chosen herself this time, was simpler than her first, an elegant sheath of ivory silk that made her feel both powerful and feminine. "You look perfect," Lucy said, adjusting the small crown of fresh flowers in Emma's hair, though I still think we should have done this at the plaza, like Nathan suggested. Emma smiled, touching the sapphire ring that now sat beside her wedding band. This feels right, starting our new beginning in the place where his mother's legacy began. A soft knock at the door revealed Catherine Carter, radiant in a pale blue dress that highlighted her returning health. The experimental treatment had worked better than anyone dared hope. She had even danced at Lucy's graduation ceremony last week. "The guests are ready," her mother said, eyes shining, "and I just had an interesting conversation with your surprise visitor." Emma's heart skipped. She had insisted on this, despite initial resistance from nearly everyone. "How is he?" "Changed." Catherine moved to adjust Emma's veil. "Prison has a way of doing that, I suppose. But when he talks about you and Nathan, about the company, there's real remorse there." Alexander had arrived under federal custody, permitted to attend the small ceremony as a reward for his continued cooperation. His testimony had not only secured convictions for his co-conspirators, but had helped identify similar schemes at other pharmaceutical companies. "Mrs. Blackwood," Mrs. Reynolds appeared in the doorway, as elegant as ever in her role as ceremony coordinator. "It's time." Emma took a final look in the mirror. 6 months had passed since that first hasty wedding, months filled with transformation and challenge and deepening love. She and Nathan had rebuilt more than just a company. They had built a partnership that touched every part of their lives. The garden path was lined with intimate gatherings of their closest friends and family. Emma saw Lawrence Chen with his family, Diana Rodriguez deep in conversation with William Porter and other allies who had helped them transform Blackwood Enterprises. Even Doris from the diner was there, beaming proudly. At the front of the small gathering, Nathan waited beneath an arch of roses. But Emma's step faltered slightly when she saw who stood beside him. Alexander, in a dark suit with his federal escorts, discreet but vigilant nearby. The brothers were speaking quietly, an echo of their former closeness visible in their shared profile. As Emma reached them, Alexander stepped back to his assigned seat, but not before whispering, "Thank you for letting me be here, for showing me another way." Nathan took Emma's hands, his eyes filled with a love that still took her breath away. The official they'd chosen, Dr. Winters, who had first told Nathan about Emma's situation, smiled warmly. Months ago, these two stood before a judge and made promises based on convenience and necessity, Dr. Winters began. Today, they stand before us to make new promises, ones born of love, trust, and shared purpose. Emma and Nathan had written their own vows this time. As they spoke them, their words reflected not just their personal journey, but the larger mission they had embraced together. "I promise to be your partner in all things," Nathan said, his voice strong and sure, "to never let power matter more than purpose, to always remember that our greatest strength lies in helping others. You taught me that love isn't a weakness. It's the foundation everything else is built on." Emma squeezed his hands. "I promise to stand beside you in all battles, boardrooms, and quiet moments. To never forget that the greatest arrangements are the ones that leave room for magic. You showed me that sometimes the safest place to fall isn't a contract, it's another heart." As they exchanged rings, simple bands engraved with their shared motto, "From ashes we rise," Emma caught glimpses of their future in the faces around them. Her mother, healthy and proud. Lucy, already making waves in Blackwood's community programs. Even Alexander, finding a path to redemption through his support of their reforms. The company was thriving, its renewed focus on ethical research and patient care attracting the best minds in medicine. The Helena Blackwood Foundation was funding breakthroughs that would save countless lives. And at the heart of it all was a partnership that had begun as a business arrangement and blossomed into something extraordinary. After they were pronounced husband and wife, again, and shared a kiss that felt both familiar and brand new, Nathan surprised everyone by making an announcement. "In honor of our new beginning," he said, his arm around Emma, "we're establishing the Carter Blackwood Scholarship for Medical Innovation, a fund to support students from disadvantaged backgrounds who dream of changing the healthcare landscape. Because sometimes the most powerful innovations come from those who understand struggle firsthand." Emma felt tears threatening as she recognized her own story in the initiative. This was how change happened. One life touched, one opportunity. Granted, one heart open to possibility. The celebration that followed was intimate and joyful. Emma danced with Nathan beneath twinkling lights, shared quiet words of encouragement with Alexander before his escorts led him away, and watched her mother laugh with Mrs. Reynolds about wedding details. Later, as the evening drew to a close, she and Nathan slipped away to Helena's old study. The room had become their favorite retreat, its walls lined with photographs chronicling both family history and recent triumphs. "Happy?" Nathan asked, pulling her close. Emma touched the newest photo, their whole extended family at Lucy's graduation. More than I ever imagined possible, though I do have one more surprise. Oh? She took his hand, placing it over her stomach with a smile that held all their tomorrows. It seems the Blackwood legacy is going to continue in more ways than one. Nathan's joy was incandescent as he pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home. Outside, the garden lights illuminated the roses his mother had planted years ago. Roses that still bloomed, season after season, reminding them that the most beautiful things could grow from the most unexpected beginnings. Emma Carter Blackwood, waitress, CEO, wife, and soon-to-be mother, had learned that love wasn't found in grand gestures or perfect plans. Sometimes it was found in desperate choices and business arrangements. Sometimes it was found in moments of crisis and courage, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, it was found exactly when and where you needed it most. The end. That was a beautiful story, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your collaboration is very important to me.